Time is the most valuable good to humanity, and in particular, obviously, also to our customers. And so the aspect of timelessness is at the core center of all our thinking to create these products. Our cars are around for more than 100 years and are to be designed to do just that. How do you make a car timeless? For it to be timeless, it needs to be authentic. It needs to tell a story. All of our experiences from these high-speed programs like Veyron and Chiron are the foundation for this new project. We were able to implement all the right steps in its architecture from the get-go. So we were able to shape proportions and volumes in the most uncompromising way, tailor-made to its purpose. And the purpose of this car is, again, to combine elegance with speed. If you want to create a car to go beyond 400 kilometers an hour, aero balance is key. You don't want to overload the tires because the tires at that speed are critical. So you neither want downforce nor lift at top speed. To create this neutral balance, you actually do have to create a lot of downforce to cancel out all the lift happening at that speed. If you imagine an aircraft at that speed would have long taken off. So that's easily enough to lift an entire aircraft. But you try to keep the car on the ground. To create this much downforce without causing too much drag, the base shape of the car is key. So if we draw a section through the tourbillon, you can see that the base shape of the car is already very close to the aerodynamic ideal, like a drop shape, or even if we compare the side view to a falcon. And what does the falcon do if it nosedives for its prey? It tucks under its wings. Why does it do that? Is to reduce its frontal area. And here we also draw inspiration from Jean Bugatti, the son of Ettore Bugatti, the founder of the company, who created the Type 57 SC Atlantic, a car which we regard as one of the most beautiful cars on the planet. And he had a concept that he called surbaissé, where he submerged the engine below and behind the front axle to get the bonnet lower, to get the driver lower, still being able to look over the bonnet, to ultimately get the roof lower and reduce its frontal area. Like that, the car was aerodynamically efficient like no other car in the time. And the same principle we thought very suitable for the development of the Tourbillon. So the Tourbillon, in comparison to the Chiron, has a much reduced frontal area by reducing the height of the car in overall and also the cabin width while maintaining all its ergonomic dimensions on the interior. This doesn't only have aerodynamic implications, but also proportional implications. And that's where beauty comes together with technical necessities. And this is the exact symbiosis that we are quite proud of at Bugatti. It's shaped by speed. All the shapes and volumes serve a certain purpose. In our case, mostly aerodynamic purposes. So every shape, intake, outlet is there for a reason and is shaped like that to fulfill a specific function. The front-end architecture of the Tourbillon is unique as well in a way that we now have the wide horseshoe grille feeding two radiators left and right with a high-pressure air inlet and a low-pressure exit. That way we create a pressure drop and have the maximum efficiency in airflow through the radiators. Also, it enables us to have the front boot packaged in between those two radiators with a really tall suitcase that reaches all the way to the bottom of the car. That way we can design the striker, the lock and the hinges in a really lightweight and compact fashion. So overall, this is a lightweight architecture. To reduce the frontal area, we have submerged the entire volume of the cabin 33 millimeters lower into the monocoque in comparison to Chiron, while maintaining the same cabin ergonomics. This gives us a really extreme proportion where the cabin crouches in between the two front wings really low. And the reduction of frontal area isn't only aerodynamically beneficial, but it also serves its proportions. What do I mean by proportions? It's the aspect ratio between, for instance, the overall diameter of the wheels in relation to the overall height of the vehicle. If we shrink down the height of the vehicle, the wheels look larger, it's beneficial for its proportions. To reduce overall vehicle height, we have mounted the seat directly to the monocoque and deleted the seat rails. Instead, the pedals and the steering wheel are adjustable longitudinally. That way, the driver can sit really close to the ground, and we can even accompany taller drivers with maximum comfort. The rear-end design of the Tourbillon lives off of the contrast between the more reflection-based and sculptural surfaces up above and the more fragmented and aero-driven technical surfaces down below. Ultimately, it is a really slim proportion that emphasizes the width perception on the rear end. The whole aero concept of not needing to deploy the rear wing in top speed mode and having the base shape of the car cancel out all the lift in top speed is only made possible by this really extreme and unique diffuser. These diffuser channels are more than 2 meters long and start right underneath the seat and exit really tall. This was only made possible by eradicating a crash beam in its classical sense. So now we have the diffuser vertical fins absorb all the kinetic energy in case of a crash. Furthermore, we have positioned the exhaust outlets at the very trailing edge of the diffuser to further energize the airflow and make the diffuser create as much downforce as it possibly can. Every bit of downforce that you create using a rear wing, you pay for with drag. To avoid drag, the strategy for this car was to not deploy the rear wing in high-speed mode. The car does have a rear wing for handling mode or for air braking. However, in the high-speed mode, the wing stays completely submerged to save the drag. That means, in turn, the base shape of the car has to be so aerodynamically efficient that it creates all the downforce necessary to cancel out the lift at Vmax, at the top speed. And so this isn't an easy thing to do, and this is only possible if you implement this kind of strategy from the very first pencil stroke.
Hi, my name is Jan Schmidt. I'm the Chief Exterior Designer at Bugatti. Together with my team, I'm responsible for envisioning, creating, designing the next generation of Bugatti, really defining the form language of our products. Of course, you need to be creative, you need to think ahead, think into the future, but at the same time, always keep the brand values and the history of a brand as strong as Bugatti in mind. And it's really about finding that sweet spot of what is a Bugatti and what can a Bugatti be in the future. This is really what it's about, to ideate and to implement this into a design process, and in the end, together with the engineering team, marketing, to find the perfect symbiosis to create a product such as the Tourbillon. Let's take a look at the Tourbillon so I could show you what designing a Bugatti really is all about. So it's really about making a Bugatti recognizable as a Bugatti from every angle. And this we do by staying true to our design DNA. Like, for example, the iconic horseshoe grille, the fuselage accentuation, and the center line, which runs from front to back and originates in the Type 57 SC Atlantic, where the car was actually riveted on the center. And on the side, the distinctive Bugatti line, which comes from the A-pillar, really runs around and shoots forward, giving the car a nice impression of leaping forward. And this really also leads us to the side view of the car, where we can see we focused on the stance, we focused on the car having more of a wedge shape expression. Everything is leaping forward, is focused towards speed, towards performance. And we added also this really extraordinarily muscular and sculptured rear fender. It has like this Coke bottle shape coming from the Bugatti line and really is formed in a soft and surface reflection-based kind of manner. Coming back to the front, one thing I mentioned the horseshoe. And it's really a prime example of how we envision form following performance. Yes, it's lower and wider than it was on any other car that came before it, and the whole facial expression really ducks onto that. Everything is originating from the horseshoe, the fuselage, but also the 8-eye face, the light graphics are docked onto that, so it's quite a prominent Bugatti design DNA element. But it also really is custom made in a way that an EU number plate really fits now in the front, inside the horseshoe. And also the corner here, the way this is shaped, this is really crash structure relevant, and it needs to be exactly in that position. And so we found a symbiosis of design, engineering that made this really a really nice proportion. Also something new is how we attached the headlight to what we call the flying fender. So this also has a purpose. Yes, on the one hand, it really accentuates the fuselage. You can really see it, how it's going forward towards the horseshoe. But on the other hand, it also helps performance, meaning there's air streaming underneath here and exiting out top of the fender, which then feeds into the side radiator and into the side air intake, improving performance, improving power. And this made it also necessary to have a really compact headlight. It's still got the 8-eye face, but it's now very technical. It looks very technological, advanced, yet a simple and clearly recognizable graphical expression. And the whole front is really a marvel of engineering, to be honest, because it's pretty much the same footprint as a Chiron in terms of width and length, but it's even a little bit lower than on the Chiron, meaning the middle of the front of the car is really snuck in between those very athletic front fenders with that crease line. And that's not only a design wish, let's say, but it's also aerodynamically necessary. We have air everywhere coming in and out the top. The car is aerodynamically very balanced, very perfectionated, and it still features more luggage space than a Chiron, while having also an E-front axle. So it's really everything is custom made, custom tailored to this package, and we're really happy that we made this synergy possible with the engineering team and the design team to come up with a facial expression as wide and focused and low as we have on the Tourbillon. If we look at the side, we can see that from the front fender, we have this very precise fender crease line pointing towards the air intake on the body side, and it's really giving this plan shape change and also giving more prominence by the three-dimensionality to the Bugatti line, which is a very prominent and important design DNA element. And at the same time, it serves two more functions. It is showcasing where the air is really entering the car, and it also serves as a three-dimensional partition line to our iconic duotone color split. Looking towards the rear, there's yet another function integrated into the center line, and it's the third brake light, or chimsel as we call it, which when you're behind the car and you brake, it really gives a very distinct and precise look to the car, accentuating one of our core design DNA elements one more time. It also draws attention to the open engine bay, with the plenum really towering on top of the engine of the naturally aspirated V16. And that's yet another example where we worked hand in hand with the engineering department to create something truly outstanding. Looking at the entirety of the rear, you will notice immediately how the rear fender is blending into the rear deck, where we also have the active rear wing that only comes out when needed. And this really gives a shape, an outline to the rear of the car, where we thought we would like to highlight that. And we highlight that by shaping the left to right taillight in a way that it's a single piece, really following and drawing the shape of the rear. And In the Tourbillon, it's done by utilizing more than 124 individual light elements that act as one graphic, with the Bugatti writing lighting up in the center. Also here underneath the taillight, we have these air outlets. We have these air channels that go all the way underneath the rear fender. And what they do is they transport hot air that comes from the radiators on the side of the car really out the back and give it that purposeful aesthetic. And therefore, we also chose to build very tightly around these elements, exposing the rear wheel and giving the whole car a wide, very lightweight appearance. And because of the integrated crash structure, we could really pull those diffuser channels up high. And not only are they high, but they already start in the middle of the car, right behind the front seats, and really accelerate the air out the back. And that is also in part possible because of the narrow build of the V16 naturally aspirated engine. So everything is playing hand in hand. The new package, the design, we really showcased the capabilities of what the Tourbillon can do. When being asked about my favorite part of the Tourbillon, I have to point at the way the rear fender is shaped. It is in fact inspired by the proportion of the rear fender of the Veyron, with its reflection-based vastness and the grandezza of the surfacing. And if you really look on how this surface conglomerate runs behind the Bugatti line down into the body side and into that air outlet underneath the Bugatti line above the rocker, that's really something I'm particularly happy about, how it turned out and how it gives really strength and muscle to the car and enhances the overall stance and proportion. The reoccurring semantic expression really on the Tourbillon is the symbiotic interplay of very strong graphical DNA elements and this grand surfacing that really makes it a Bugatti.